Live from London, it's Plank of the Week with Mike Graham.
Welcome to another edition of Plank of the Week. It's Friday night. This is talkTV, of course. I'm Mike Graham, and it's the one show where you can be as judgmental as you want, because this is where we tell you who all the idiots have been this week, and as ever, there have been plenty of them. I'm delighted to say I've got a brand new panel, and for the first time ever on Plank of the Week, a man who should have been on it many times before. Ben Habib is here. Ben, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. He's an ex-MEP, of course. Who knows where he's going in politics in the future? He won't tell us. Georgie Frost returns to the new studio. He used to be a regular on the old show. Welcome to the new show, Georgie. Laura Dodsworth returns for yet another go-round on all the plankery that's been going on. And another return for a man who has been away for a while, we can't say where, Dave Chawner. Welcome back to Plank of the Week, Dave. We better get things underway straight away. We've got, of course, to fight for this one thing. It is the plank, which we put firmly there until somebody wins it. And I think there's going to be quite a battle tonight. Let's get the first plank from Ben Habib. Ben, tell us who it is.
Well, my first plank of the week is Sadiq Khan. And,
hurrah!
I mean, there's always a reason to have a crack at Sadiq, and they're always legitimate. But this week, Sadiq, in the face of all the difficulties people are facing, cost of living crisis, inflation up, strikes, decides that actually clean air in London is his top priority.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And he's, in his wisdom, extended the ULEZ zone, or intends to extend the ULEZ zone beyond the A406. Is it the A406? A206?
North 406.
North,
yeah.
406.
Yeah.
You know, across London to Greater London, so that we can all have cleaner air. Of course, what this is effectively a regressive tax on the working and middle classes. Sadiq has broken the public services that he's responsible for. He's run out of cash. He's increased tube fares as much as he can. He's increased council taxes. So what next? You know, squeeze the motorist.
Yeah.
We've had a war on motorists from Sadiq for, you know, his entire mayoralty, and it doesn't stop there. So for me, Sadiq Khan, and by the way, I think Sadiq Khan should be Plank of the Week every week.
Yeah, well, he does make quite a lot of regular appearances, and Plank of the Year's coming up soon. He might make an appearance on that. The thing about this as well is that in the week when we had all of this rain and snow and freezing ice and all the rest of it on the roads, you don't see too many cyclists out there, do you? Because it's a bit dangerous to be on a bike. And so if you are taking your kids to school, or if you are, you know, trying to get through the horrible weather, you're probably going to be in a car. And a lot of these places where he's going to extend it to are places where there isn't much public transport, you know, and a lot of carers are going to be affected by it, a lot of businessmen, businesswomen, people who drive vans, all of that.
Yeah,
Why are you laughing?
I mean, this is
You're not going to be affected by it.
Why I'm laughing is because I know what you actually mean is, in all of these hazardous conditions, I would like to see more cyclists fall over and go under wheels of a car.
It would be entirely wrong for me to say that I did retweet a video of a cyclist slipping on some ice just the other day. But yeah, I mean, the fact is that you're right. What I was saying when the Tory government were doing their latest sort of autumn/winter statement about how much they were going to tax us, I thought, well, how are they going to find any more taxes? Sadiq Khan has managed to find one.
He's managed to do it, absolutely.
So it's going to cost, technically, £27.50 a day if you're a man or a woman who works in central London, lives in somewhere like outer London, to get from the ULEZ zone into the congestion charge zone.
And then add parking on top as well.
Add parking.
You know, on Twitter the other week, he was championing small businesses, but I can't imagine a worse blow to the knee for small businesses than this.
No.
Last time I had to drive into London for work, it cost me over £100 with congestion charging, ULEZ and parking.
Right.
That's insane.
Yes.
That's insane. How can a small business cope with daily costs
They
like
can't.
that?
They simply can't. I know people who have gone out of business since the pandemic started, because even during the pandemic, when he was going to talk about doing things for the people, he didn't take the congestion charge away. In fact, not only did he not take it away, he put it on at weekends.
And when he wanted to get London going, he actually put it up from £11
I was actually
to
driving,
£15, 7 days a week.
On Sunday, and I couldn't remember whether they'd take, because I thought they were going to take it off, but they haven't apparently. So I had to pay again for a congestion charge on Sunday.
And if he tries to blame lockdowns for the, you know, breaking TfL and the requirement for these charges, it's just not true. TfL was in financial trouble before lockdown started, under his watch.
Yeah.
You know, let's talk about the Elizabeth line very briefly.
Yeah, let's.
You know, £4.5 billion over budget 3.5 years late under Sadiq Khan's watch.
Have you tried to take it out to here yet? Because I keep getting mixed messages from people. Some people say it's great, other people say it doesn't work very well. I haven't even tried it. I was going to take it from the airport one day, and when I came off at Heathrow, it said first train 13 minutes. And I thought, I know that sounds a bit, you know, like I'm from London and I must have everything very quickly. But 13 minutes is a long time to wait for a train, isn't it?
Oh, I'm from Anns. I'm not even from London.
Where
And
are
Sadiq
you from?
Khan's up
Where are
there
you
from
really
me.
from?
Where am I really?
Hey?
I was born in Norway, but I don't travel all that far. I just wish he was more honest about it. Look, if you look at the pollution zones, it's central London and Heathrow. Those are the really big ones. Greater London. It's not. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not. And I don't just be honest and say that this is a revenue raiser, because that's what this is.
Yeah.
The fact that also this week, I think he's agreed to raise council tax by £20 to pay for TfL. Look, it was hammered quite a lot during the pandemic, but you're right, it's also been badly mismanaged. And I just think, just be honest. Say, we just want a bit of extra money. It's got nothing to do with whether it's cars or not. And you're absolutely right. Who's it going to hit? Who has cars still, you know, petrol cars before 2006 or diesel cars? It is going to be the poorest people that can't afford to replace them. They're the ones that are going to get hammered from this.
Also, not just the poorest people. I mean, if I was to get an electric car, it would cost me about £10,000 more than a normal car, a petrol or diesel car. That's a huge extra cost. I actually think electric cars are the preserve of the rich. You know, they're for affluent people. It's not just the poorest cars who've got petrol and diesel. It's most people.
Even the rich can't
isn't
afford
it?
electric cars anymore. That's why the sales of them are going down. But let's move on to yours. Who's your first plank?
Well, my first plank isn't a person, it is the Cambridge Dictionary.
You can have dictionaries.
Thank you, because they have changed the meaning of the word woman, or at least they're pretending they can change the meaning of the word woman. You would like to think that some really bright eggheads are at Cambridge Dictionary,
You'd
but
like to
no,
think so.
it's Humpty Dumpty. If you remember, Humpty Dumpty in Alice in Wonderland said that words could mean whatever he wanted.
Yeah.
Well, that's what Cambridge Dictionary have done. Now, the primary meaning is still an adult female human being, but the second meaning, I've had to write it down because it's so crazy that I can't even remember it. It's an adult who lives and identifies as female as though they may have been said to have a different sex at birth. I mean, there's no may about it. If you're not female but you identify as a woman, it's because you were born a man and you are a man. I think that this is very nonsensical. Most people don't think of a woman as being a man.
Not really.
And if woman means man and woman, it means nothing.
Right.
You can't change the meaning of words like this. But more than that, I actually think it's a little bit dangerous. So bear with me. Language controls thought. And if you control the language, you can control people's thinking.
Yeah.
I think that there are identity politics activists who want to erase the idea of a woman in your head. And that is why they're erasing the true meaning of the word woman.
I saw a new pronoun this week, which I hadn't heard of before, Zia.
Oh, that's been around a while.
Z-I-R. Really? See, I'm always late on
What
this
does it
thing.
mean?
I thought he was the president of Pakistan.
Yeah, that's what he was. He was blown up.
Yeah, he was blown up on a plane,
1988.
wasn't he? Yeah, I remember that well. Apparently it means somebody of indeterminate gender. Z-I-R.
Yeah, like
Zia.
a non-binary thing. Now, the
But isn't there
dictionary...
another word for that? Non-binary.
Well, I think there's almost infinite genders and pronouns now, and that's the thing. So they did change they changed the meaning of man in the dictionary.
But who
it's
comes
not
up with
just
Zia,
women.
though? Who says this is the new word for
People
that?
with too much time on their hands.
Someone called Zia and thought this is a way to be famous.
Yeah. And then copyright it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see what you mean. It is mad, though, isn't it?
It is mad. So even though they've changed the meaning of man in the dictionary, the thing is, it always feels like it's women's language they're coming for. You know, you're a chest feeder, not breastfeeding. You're a uterus haver, not a woman. You're a cis woman, not a woman. And I think the reason it matters for women more is that women have negotiated and battled for sex-based spaces and rights like refuges, privacy in sport and prisons and all women shortlists. And so actually it's women who suffer when you change the meaning of the word woman.
I think men don't care as much because they're always being misidentified and, you know, blamed for everything. So, you know, we're just used to that, aren't we? You know, everybody blames it. Well, you always get blamed for everything. It's always our fault. It's always our fault.
No, that's just you, Mike.
Is it just me? It could well be. Right, who's yours? Dave, first
Mine
one up.
is Ben... which one is it? Can I retake
Ben
that?
Bradley.
Ben Bradley.
How many
Mine's
Bens?
Ben Bradley.
Well, how many Bens are you nominating?
Loads, mate. No, I will tell you why Ben Bradley, and
Yeah.
I'll also tell you why this is really ironic as well. He was the bloke that took a picture in the Houses of Parliament.
Oh, yes.
And he left his flash on, and then he got kicked out. And he
Yes,
had to go
I
and
saw
see the
that
sergeant.
during Prime Minister's question.
Now, what's really ironic about this is yesterday, so I nominated him yesterday, and then that evening I did a gig last night, and John Bishop was headlining, and my mum loves John Bishop.
Nice
so
name drop you've got there.
No, genuinely.
I'm sure it's true. I'm not saying you made it up.
Well, but like, I did a Ben Bradley. So I was going to nominate him for taking a picture of it. And I said, look, no one can take photos while final actors on stage. And then I took a photo, left the flash on. So I've kind of by proxy, I'm nominating myself as well as Ben Bradley.
Who takes a picture with the flash on, unless you're actually planning to do a picture which you need the flash for?
Well, the only reason I did it, and this is the only reason I think sometimes if you've got the auto function on, sometimes it will just sort of come on. But I think that, why is
Did he do it by accident?
Yeah.
Did he?
Yeah,
You're not allowed to. You're not allowed to take
You're not allowed
a
to take
picture.
a
Yeah, no, I know
in the
that.
comments.
But why would he take a picture then?
That's the bigger point. What was he taking a picture of? Because it was just
To put on
Ricky...
Instagram
I mean, I
or
can pick up my
something, surely.
phone, right, and it doesn't automatically take a picture of anything, does it?
Maybe
Unless
just
you're on-
send
Oh, no,
his
he'd
mum or
chosen
something.
to take...
So was he trying to take a secret picture?
He was trying to take a secret
It was
picture.
PMQs, wasn't it? And it was Rishi Sunak he was photographing, which is beyond me. So we're back to where we started. Why was he taking a photo?
That's what I mean. It's not like if Rishi Sunak was doing like a puppet show, I can get why you would take a photo. But it's just Rishi Sunak like reading something
Doing
or
his
talking.
job.
And you're like, just switch on the telly and have a look. You know what I mean? It seems like very odd.
Could have done a screen grab
selfies
from the telly.
Selfies are everywhere now. Everyone's doing selfies in all kinds of weird places, and I think that shows how it's encroached into every aspect of life. When you've even got an MP taking a photo in the House of Commons,
Maybe he
when
just
you're not supposed
liked
to.
what
At least he
she was
wasn't watching
wearing,
porn.
wanted to take a photograph and then
Oh,
go
maybe
to...
he was.
See, and that's maybe possible.
You
And
know,
I
there's
don't-
lots of different reasons.
I don't object to people taking pictures surreptitiously, but I mean, if this is how bad he is at doing that, then how good of an MP is he? I mean, if he can't even take a picture without anyone noticing,
That is a fair
you would
point.
worry about that, wouldn't you? I mean, this is the trouble.
Nation's got no hope.
No, I mean, this is literally what we're left with, the dregs of political
I quite like what you're
science.
implying there, that there should be some sort of testing system to be an MP. So you have to do
Well,
like
I think that wouldn't be a bad
provisional-
idea. You
That's
know,
great.
Like if you
I think
found
that's
out, for
great.
example, that they were serial adulterers stroke molesters of people, then
Then they
maybe
get in for free.
Well, then you could just join the Tory party. And make sure you sit on the right side of the house. If you are in some ways a spender of other people's money that you shouldn't have, then you go in the Labour Party.
If you eat more than a kilo of falafel a week, bam, you're left.
And if you've got nothing to say at all, straight into the Lib Dems.
Great.
You know, I mean, it's pretty obvious, isn't it? Is it time to do the next one? I think... Oh, OK, it is time. Georgie Frost, it's time for your nomination. It was supposed to be a bit later on, but I think we should do it now.
Great.
It says energy firms.
Oh, great. OK, I wasn't quite sure which one was going first,
Yes.
but energy firms,
It's really good the way you get briefed by the producer. of
Yeah.
the show.
Marvellous.
I mean, I turn up here expecting everything to be done. Everything should be done, ready. You should all know exactly what's going on. But every week it's the same. Nobody knows anything. Anyway, here you go.
OK, energy firms. Yes, this is a
Yes.
bit of an investigation by some of my colleagues at Times Money have been finding that a lot of energy firms have been holding money in people's accounts, basically treating us like cash cows
yes.
and raising the direct debit at the same time,
Yes.
making us jump through hoops to get our money back. If this was the only complaint I had, well, it's still a big complaint, but
Yeah.
it's not. The regulator have looked into energy firms 3 times this year, including the way that they treat vulnerable customers, and they have not come out very well,
No.
to put it that way. I have my own experience with British Gas. I have spent the last 9 months and over 20 hours on the phone trying to stop them from chasing me, sending debt collectors for £2,000 debt for an admin error on their behalf.
That's outrageous.
An hour and a half on the phone at the end, I had to say to them, this is impacting my mental health. Will you do something about it? I had a call from these debt collectors. It is a scary place to be.
Yeah.
We're in a
Oh, it's
cost of living
horrible.
crisis.
Yeah.
Energy prices are through the roof, and we have energy firms treating customers like this. It is an absolutely disgrace. And I asked them not to give me compensation, but to pay quite a large amount of money into a debt charity, debt charity.
It's very good of you.
Well, they have not done it yet.
Okay.
So British Gas, any representatives, if you're watching this, do the right thing.
Yes.
But don't put people through this.
No, you see, this is why, for as long as I can remember, I've advocated don't give them a direct debit. Do never, ever give them
never.
a direct
Really?
debit. Because
Never.
if you do, they will take that money whenever they wish, right? Especially at the moment when prices are going up. They will simply just say, right, you now owe us double. But mostly they're saying, we think you're going to owe us double, so what we're going to do is we're going to put your direct debit up, then we're going to take the money, and then you are stuck, in other words. You can't do anything about it.
So the
Yeah.
regulator looked, when the energy price cap went up in April, 54%, the regulator looked at it and found that 500,000 customers had had their direct debits increased by double.
Yeah.
Well, I'm no mathematician, but double is not 54%.
No.
It's almost twice.
Well, yes,
Yeah.
indeed.
Very good.
Indeed.
Well done, Dave.
Indeed.
100%
Right? And
some
now
would
the
call it.
business minister has asked them to do it again because we're seeing the same thing happen. October last year, there was £1.5 billion that the energy companies had just sitting in people's accounts, which was not their money.
Yeah,
it's
no.
not the energy firm's
you know,
money. It's
never-
our money, but you have to jump through hoops to get it back.
As Mike said, never give anyone a direct debit. It is actually a license for them to take what they want when they want. A standing order, perhaps, but
Yes,
a
a
direct
standing order is
debit,
much better.
never. And I've had this problem with other vendors. You know, the energy firms clearly in the crosshairs, rightly so at the moment. But I've had it with other vendors. You give them a direct debit, they take what they want. Your mortgage companies insist on it. You know, and for about a year, I was paying a much higher mortgage rate because no one told me I should be shopping around for some sort of, you know, because they lower their rates to get you in. Then once you're in, they penalise you. And I was being penalised, didn't realise it for about a year because I'd signed a direct debit. Moral of the story is no one signed a direct debit.
Yeah, exactly. And they try and get you to do it all the time. I mean, I have trouble with Scottish Power, who are the people that... and they have the most ridiculous system of all time because they try to get you to sign up online. I'm like, no, not doing it. Will you please read your meter? No, I'm not reading it. That's your job. You come and read my meter, unless you want to pay me to read my meter, and then in which case I'll read it, you know. And then they would...
They love you.
Yeah, they hate me. And then they're like, well, would you like it if we give you a direct debit opportunity? Then you can pay a lower rate. So I don't care. I'm paying what I want to pay. I'll use the electricity. Then I'll pay you what I used. I will not pay you for what you think I'm going to use in the future, which is what most people do. And if you do build up a surplus, they don't give it to you back. You know, they once rang me on holiday because they'd sent a bill out. Except they don't send the bill anymore. They just put it online and they send you a text saying the bill's due. Please sign online to find out how much the bill is. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. You can send me a bill, and when I get the bill, I'll pay it. And then they actually rang me once to say I hadn't paid the bill and it was late. And I said, well, I haven't had a bill. And they said, well, where are you? I said, well, I'm not at home. I haven't been there for 5 days. I'm on holiday. And if you ever ring me again, I'm going to report you to Ofcom. And they stopped. So we've had this long-running feud, myself and Scottish Power.
Well, I had a similar thing. This is genuinely true. I had a summons to court.
Yeah.
Because
Not for the first time.
Not for the first time. Don't believe the allegations. But we got a letter through from an energy company that we weren't even with that said you owe us over £1,000. And we were like, well, we're not even with said energy.
Right.
It rhymes with CDF. And we were like, we're not even with CDF.
Right.
We're with
So how did they
Pleon.
manage to bill you for something you hadn't done?
Well, there's a thing called an erroneous transfer. The first company had stopped supplying our gas and the second energy company just took over. Neither companies told us that they'd taken over our bills. And then we were just racking up this bill. How ridiculous. And I said, this is a highly toxic substance you're dealing with, gas.
Right.
And you don't even know where it's going.
And this is the
That's a
problem.
worry.
You get caught up in this Kafkaesque nightmare that ends up... I mean, British Gas thought I was a business living in the flat upstairs. So a completely different address. It had trashed my credit rating.
It's shambolic,
they had to
isn't it?
write to the credit agencies. This is having really serious complications. You're OK if you've got the time to get onto Scottish Power or whatever and
Not
spend
really.
all that time.
I tell them to get lost when they ring me.
But it is an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, it really is. But that's why I say, if you're listening and you want any advice on this, just pay for what you use. That's as simple as that. Don't give them any more. Don't let them into your house. Just, you know, don't get a meter. Don't do any of that. It's a far better place to be.
Burn the letters.
You can also do that. You can put all the letters in the bin. Yeah. I used to do that with people who claimed I owed
That's
them
a
money.
joke.
Yeah.
Don't burn your energy bills.
No, unless you have to burn them
Unless
to keep
you have
warm.
to burn them to keep warm. So, yeah.
But
Don't
this is
tell
the thing.
Sadiq Khan.
Yeah, don't tell Sadiq Khan. Coming up, we're going to be nominating somebody else who's going on strike. There are so many people on strike right now. I think we're the only 5 people, plus everybody else who's working here, who are not actually on strike. This is Plank of the Week. Back after this. Here we are, welcome back to Plank of the Week, the one show on Friday night that you don't have to worry about because no matter how stupid you've been this week, there are many more people who on this show, and I don't mean the people who are on the panel at all, what I mean is the people who have been doing stupid things throughout the course of the last 5 to 7 days. Now, my nomination is the first one in this particular session, and I'm going to nominate Highways England. Now, when I nominated Highways England, I thought that's what they were called. It turns out they're not called that anymore because they've changed their name. They're now called National Highways. And I don't know, Ben, you might have to explain this to me, but why do people in government always insist that the civil service continually changes the names of departments, you know? Because suddenly we used to have the Department of Agriculture, Fisheries and Food. I don't think it's called that anymore.
No.
It's called something else, and they changed it to something that I can't remember.
It's DEFRA, isn't it?
DEFRA, that's right.
Yeah.
And somehow they've changed it, so they've now sort of sliced it all up. So you've got National Highways South East, you've got National Highways North West.
Well, it's part of what Laura was saying. It's to discombobulate
Yeah.
you. So you know, they capture the language, they muck around with your head, and you don't know who to complain to.
But here's the thing: if you cast your mind back to Sunday evening, or Sunday afternoon in some parts of the South East, when it started to snow, and everybody knew that it was going to snow. They told us that it was going to snow for days, right? They'd said that there's going to be probably quite a substantial amount of snow. It's going to actually get quite cold. Today, it's probably in the -5 area.
It was.
People in the north of England, of course, say, you idiots, you know, it snows all the time up here, but you never cover it, which is not entirely true, because we do cover it when it snows up there as well. It's just that when it does happen in London, it happened particularly badly in London on Sunday night, you know, there was like 4 or 5 inches of snow, which I don't remember happening for a good 10 years.
Long time,
right?
yeah.
But of course, Highways England / National Highways / whatever the hell they're called, weren't prepared again. And people were stuck on the road. The M25 was basically closed down for about 8 hours. People were stuck on the road for 8 hours. Now, National Highways 3 days ago put this out. There are severe wintry conditions on the M20 in Kent in both directions between junctions 7 and 9. Please only travel if your journey is essential. And then they say, here's what you should have in the car, right? So I don't know whether any of you've got this. Be prepared to pack a winter kit. Food and water, warm clothes, an ice scraper, a de-icer, blankets, boots, a torch, a snow shovel, and a fully charged mobile phone.
Well, I'll tell you what you don't want. You don't want an electric car because they can't cope very well with the
No,
snow.
apparently not. If you have an electric car, you have to charge the car as well as the phone. And you've got a real problem then. Do you remember when Joe Biden came out the other week and said that there's no problem if you've got an electric car and you have a power cut because you just plug the house into the car?
What?
Yeah, that's what he said. He did say that. Now, technically speaking, you can actually do it, but you would need a specific set of connections to do it. I mean, you can't just buy a Tesla and go, great, I can just plug the house into the car now while it's charging overnight from the house. It's a kind of weird dystopian thing.
That's
anyway,
mad.
I know. Biden believes it, though, so it must be true, right? So I find it extraordinary that, once again, Britain was ground to a halt. Airports shut down. They couldn't take off. And I know this is a hoary old sort of story, but, you know, we've all been in airports around the world. I remember being in New York once, and there was a snowfall of something like 2 feet overnight. And we actually managed to get to the airport. In the end, the plane didn't actually take off because it was a bit too slippery. But, you know, the planes were running again literally 2 hours later. Because they've got these huge machines where they pick up the snow and the ice and they chuck it into this huge kind of inferno and it just all melts and they get rid of it all. And, you know, we have hardly any snow at all and nothing works.
Gridlock.
And so we didn't need a train strike on Monday because the trains couldn't run because it was too cold and there was too much snow.
Run.
Yeah.
Well, I had that problem once when there was a big snowstorm and I just finished work. I went down to get the tube and the guy's like, no, the tube's closed. I said, why? Because of the snow. I said, but it's underground.
It's underground.
I mean, in what world do you have to close something that's underground? And they went, well, some of it's overground. I'm like, well, just run the bit that's underground then.
No, I can't figure it out.
I was born in Norway.
can't
We don't
have
understand any of this.
Can you
like,
imagine?
why the whole country has to stop
Anything
Keep the
shutting
trains
down.
underground. Don't bring them out.
Extraordinary. I would also say to add to your survival kit, something that you can go to the toilet in as well is also really useful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you can always get out of the car and just...
If it's very cold, I wouldn't recommend it.
Really?
Yeah.
It's
And
easier
it might be quite public, so you
it's
might want to
easier for
hide.
men, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think...
That's my tip.
We just can't cope with any weather in this country.
can't,
you
we
know,
can't.
like too hot, trains don't work.
Yeah.
Autumn, leaves,
Yeah.
trains
Wrong
don't
kind of
work.
leaves on the line.
Frost, snow,
Yeah.
the trains don't work. I mean, I understand that we don't have the infrastructure for cold weathers like countries which are more used to it, but we can't seem to handle any season.
No, this is it, because the
There's
argument...
gonna be- there's gonna be
Or
one
Mick Lynch. We
season.
can't
There's gonna
handle
be-
Mick Lynch either.
Oh, you wait.
Wrong
Right,
kind of
I-
Mick Lynch.
yeah.
Trains don't work.
We're going to him.
Well, I've heard that the weather's going on strike in the new year, so that might stop. There
Well, it
might
might.
be no
Ah,
weather.
the weather's going on strike.
Yeah.
It might well do. The funny thing
It's
is...
had years of
you're right, because
underpayment.
the argument always is, oh, there's no point in investing in things like snow ploughs, and there's no point in investing in you know, gritting. Because, of course, there was no gritting going on. That was the other thing.
This is a debate that goes back 40 years, though, I think, Mike, isn't it? You know, I remember as a child flying from... Because I was at boarding school in England, lived in Pakistan, and I was flying back to Pakistan. Couldn't take off from Heathrow for 2 days because there'd been like an inch of snow. Landed in Frankfurt, where I was changing planes. There'd been 6 feet of snow and everything was operating. You know, that was back in 1983 or something. And so, I mean, I think it is a perennial British problem. I think we are expert and professional at being amateur, and nothing's really moved on.
There's always great excuses as to why something isn't possible. It seems to be the British thing, doesn't it? Like, they'll explain why they haven't bought... There's a mountain of salt outside of Baltimore, and the reason I know this is because I used to drive up and down the I-95 all the time, because my kids lived in Washington and my sister lived in New York and all that. Anyway, there's a huge mountain of salt that they use to put salt on the roads, and it's just there all the time. So when it's cold, they go and fill up the lorries and they grit it, and that's it. But in this country, apparently, we have to buy it every year, and somebody always has a reason why we didn't buy it this year, because we didn't have the money. And you go, right. So we'll just have to hope for the best. I mean, it's just nobody seems to know how to run anything. It's unbelievable.
But on the plus side, this is a great British national pastime, isn't it, talking about the weather? So if things ran well, then we wouldn't have as much to talk about. So think of the positives, you know, here. It's better for Britain that we've got the weather to moan about.
But wouldn't it be nicer if we could just continually actually drive on the roads?
Well,
no matter
and
what the weather.
safety issues, and, you know, there's lots of other issues. But, you know, we've got something now to talk about.
Yeah, it's true. I don't know what we would do without that.
Exactly.
Very nicely put. So, Laura, the final, not the final, your second nominee.
Plank. OK. Well, do you remember, during lockdowns, this lovely sparkly carrot was dangled in front of us? Don't worry, when it's all over, we'll have 1920s hedonism. Well, I think that would be a very nice gift from Father Christmas this year. But we're not getting the 1920s, we're getting the 1970s. Yeah. So my plank is the Union Grinch, Mike Lynch.
Yes.
He wishes us a very militant Christmas.
He does.
Now, first of all, I'm going to say I've got every sympathy with working people who want their wages to keep apace with inflation.
Yes.
Of course. Although, just a little side note, you know, with lockdowns and money printing, we were always going to end up with inflation and strikes. We're in a place that was totally foreseeable. But while I get that they want to strike, I think it's completely unacceptable to strike at Christmas. Yeah. They're going for maximum disruption, but they're going to get minimum sympathy. Yeah. First of all,
sympathy's all draining away, isn't it?
Sympathy's just draining away because, you know, obviously people want to go and visit their families, they want to have celebrations, they want to get together, they want to worship together, they want to do whatever they want to do at Christmas. But more than that, while rail workers are asking for more, what they're doing is taking away from the high street and also pubs and restaurants, because this is such an important time of year. So small businesses have been absolutely hammered by the last couple of years, by the increase in corporation tax, by inflation. And now just, you know, the final sixpence in the pudding for them is that they're not getting normal business at Christmas. Yeah. So I think that...
Which is going to really hurt them, actually.
It's going to really hurt. And I just think that's so bad for them. And what they should have done was delay the strikes to January. Why do them at Christmas? They should have done them at January.
Well, they should have stopped doing them, I think, is the point. They did their strikes. They made their point. The government is trying to give them an offer which they don't seem to want. They don't even want to show it to their members, even, never mind, actually. They just reject it out of hand, which tells you where they are. And the other thing about Mick Lynch is that he came across, you know, the great thing that I love about the old, you know, the champagne socialists and all the kind of, you know, the toffee-nosed Labour voters, they all go, isn't it amazing? Look, there's a working-class bloke with a brain. Whereas everybody else who's actually normal doesn't do that. You just go, he's quite a smart guy. I don't care which school he went to. I don't care which education system he came from. You know, he's a union negotiator. He's pretty clever. You know, you can't just take the mickey out of him. And he's quite good when you interview him. But he's starting to lose the plot. He's starting to get wound up. And the mask has fallen this week.
I think he's really politicised this. It's really militant. And I think they've lost a lot of public sympathy by striking over Christmas.
I think they have.
He came on TV, if I'm right in thinking, and said, we will not disrupt Christmas. Yeah. And then announced that the strikes would be extending from the 24th over to the 27th. Yeah. Bear in mind, trains don't normally run on 26th, 27th, but they extended the strike across the Christmas period.
When he said Christmas Eve, I think for a lot of people that was the end.
Exactly, right? And I think that is really cynical as well. Am I also right in thinking that RMT members don't get paid to go on strike? No. So they'll be actually losing a couple of grand, which probably won't even be made up.
£5 grand.
Well, it depends on how much you get paid, but absolutely. So even if they do take this pay offer, I mean, they rejected that 9% over 2 years. If they take a new pay offer, actually, they will have lost that money anyway over the 2 years.
Yeah.
So I kind of just think, yes, of course, we all want to have our pay kept in line with inflation. But the fact that they've been so militant over the years is borne out in the figures of the fact that the average pay is a lot bigger than the average pay in the UK for train drivers and train workers.
And also, the average pay rise in the private sector is about 6% over time, the period that they're talking about, and they're wanting somewhere in the order of 15%. It's just not sustainable. And I accept the fact as well that the railway companies are not run very well, you know, because they're run by idiots. However, modernisation is the thing, and that's what happens to be needed, right? Chawner, you'll no doubt have a view on this.
Absolutely. I am going to paint a big target on my back. I think, firstly, they're striking over Christmas because that's when people need the trains the most. It's like being a gardener and going on strike over winter. You'd be like, well, I don't use you over winter anyway, so what are you doing here?
Mostly do strike over winter, don't they?
Gardeners are lazy.
They don't drive trains.
I think that they need better working conditions, and if you listen to St Lynch...
Why do they need better working conditions?
Because, well, a lot of the things that they're actually striking for, very few of them are actually doing it for pay. A lot of them are doing it for...
So which conditions are they?
For example, taking away train
about?
guards. Like, if I'm stuck in between two platforms, I don't want it to turn into Lord of the Flies. I want someone on that train.
What are you doing in between the platforms? You're supposed to be on the platforms. You shouldn't be between...
No. But if you break down, for example, if the train breaks down or if someone has, like, a medical emergency or something, I want someone there in authority that knows how a train works rather than just, like, 500 people going mad, right? And I also think...
But, you do know there are trains that operate like that.
Yeah, that's not happened.
Yeah, and they want to take train guards off completely.
Have you ever been on the DLR?
But that's already
everything is going to be more and more
Have you ever been on the
automated.
DLR where they've got no drivers or guards?
No, I mean, that's fun.
Have you ever seen Lord of the Flies there?
Yes, all the time.
I once got on that, right? I once got on the DLR and there was a guy sitting in the front pretending to be driving it.
That was probably me. I love doing that.
And people thought he was the driver.
Seriously? I mean, I love
in the front.
It's the best thing in the world.
It was really funny.
It's the best thing in the world. And also, I think, like, it annoys me that people get, like, sort of so antsy about, like, strikes over Christmas. I hope there are strikes over Christmas. If it means that I don't have to visit Art in June, I am going to be well happy to not have to spend Christmas listening to how she's got guttering problems.
Now, we've run out of time on this, unfortunately, because I wanted to get the nurses' strike into this as well, but we may have to come back to that. And, Ben, you're going to be up next because I've got an idea who you are going to nominate next. And we are, of course, here for the rest of the show, unless something terrible happens. This is Plank of the Week. I'm Mike Graham. We'll be back after this. Thank God for that. Welcome back to Plank of the Week. Something terrible almost did happen there, but luckily we got away with it and it didn't happen. Now, before we go to Ben Habib for his next nomination, I just want to say, while we cover over the striking workers, I just want to give an honourable mention to the NHS, because, of course, they're all striking, supposedly to get better conditions and to get better money and all the rest of it. But there's an awful lot of people who are not badly paid. And I can tell you that we interviewed somebody today who was on the picket line going on and on and on about, you know, how they've been undervalued for years and how people treated them terribly and they're all at the end of their tether. They're all jumping up and down, shouting, screaming, having a great time, having people honking at them. You know, it seems like a nice day out.
Already non-biased journalism.
Seems like a nice... Well, I'm just reporting what I saw.
Yeah, in a non-biased way.
In a non-biased way.
Of course.
How much do you think this guy was making that he wants us in a 17 to 19% pay rise for?
4.5 bill.
No, not quite. He was on band 7. He didn't want to say how much that was, so I looked up band 7. It's £45,000 to £50,000 a year for a 36.5-hour week.
It depends what he's doing.
He's not doing very much, is he? He's on strike.
Well, yeah, not today. Like, I didn't just mean in life. Like, I meant, like, what sort of job has he got? How many years has he trained for?
He had been in the service for 10 years.
Yeah.
And he managed to find his way up the ladder quite successfully. You probably know this, that's double the average wage in this country. And he's moaning that he's undervalued. I think it's wrong. I think the NHS should not be striking. And I think they're a disgrace, but that's for another day. Ben, tell us about your next nominee.
Well, my second nomination for Plank of the Week is Jeremy Hunt, because actually I blame all the strikes on Jeremy Hunt. You know, there are two ways to put money into people's back pockets. You either give them a salary increase which is what the debate's about, but actually the other way is to cut taxes. And he had this great opportunity in his autumn statement to take a whole load of people at the lower end of wages straight out of the tax net by upping, for example, you know, the threshold from £12,500 for nil tax up to, say, 20, which is a basic level of existence. And he didn't do it. And can you imagine what a fantastic Christmas present that would have been for the rail workers, for the nurses, for the mail workers, for even the legal profession who were on strike? But he didn't do it. So I hold him squarely responsible for the strikes. I also think that he moved... You know, this is a man who failed as health secretary, failed then as foreign secretary, tried to take us into the single market when we wanted to leave the EU, failed to win the leadership, failed at the first round, second time he tried for the leadership, and here he is effectively dictating to the country what he sees as the correct...
I find that extraordinary. It's sort of bypassed the system altogether,
Absolutely. So he's got to be right up there as plank of the week.
Yeah, he really has. He's actually should have been mentioned probably more often, don't you think?
I'm no Jeremy Hunt apologist.
OK.
What I will say is a couple of points.
Yeah.
He probably looked at the Kwasi Liz Truss shambles that had just exploded.
I prefer to call it a show.
Whatever you'd like to call it. The
Kwamageddon.
Kamikaze politics that went on a few weeks before and thought, I don't think I'm going to go there. In terms of cutting tax or raising the threshold, OK, but there are also practical issues that wouldn't be able to be implemented until next April.
Well, you could do it straight away. You could
I think in terms of payroll, I think it would be quite difficult. I'm not going to go into sort of tax and all that sort of issues, but I think it would need some time to bed in. Although the fact that we've changed national insurance 3 times this year has, you know, sent payrolls through the roof. But either way, I just think for someone like Jeremy Hunt, I don't think you can totally blame him for the strike action. I think that they still would have gone on strike even if you had raised the threshold for the basic income. And also the fact that we'd already had 8 strike days, I think, from the RMT union in the summer anyway. So I don't think we can blame him for that. That's not to say we can't blame him for a lot of other things.
He's very smug-looking. That's what I blame him
He looks like a meerkat.
Right,
yeah, he does.
OK.
He looks like a bank manager, actually. I think he looks like one of those bank managers from the 1970s. Do you remember?
Who likes to say no.
Who likes to say no.
No, you can't have that loan.
And that was in the days
mortgage.
when I used to have trouble getting sort of a £25 overdraft, and they'd be going, "Oh, £25 is an awful lot of money."
Very computer says no.
Yeah.
So although I see what you're saying, you couldn't necessarily implement all of those tax reductions immediately. People would have at least known they were coming, and
do you think that would affect
putting more
strikes?
money, putting more money into people's pockets,
it's critical.
is just what we needed.
And I'm not disagreeing
and here's the
with
other
that
thing.
principle. I just think practically it would have no impact on strikes. So the argument of to be plank of the week and blame him for the strikes, I don't think holds. For lots of other reasons, absolutely plank of the week.
But here's the other thing. You know, we have a greater and greater dependency culture, and that's because it doesn't pay to work, because taxes are way too high. The median wage in this country is about £30,000 a year. 79% of people earn less than that.
Yeah.
And you can actually earn pretty much the same amount on universal credit.
Yeah.
So why would you go to work? So if he had cut taxes, not only would he have made people feel a lot better about themselves, he would have made it more likely that people would get off their backsides instead of watching Netflix and start working.
It's a good idea.
Actually,
absolutely. Speaking of Netflix, I can't believe nobody's nominated Harry and Meghan. It's extraordinary. There's not been some mistake.
Because the last time I was on here, and this was a couple of years ago, I'm pretty sure that you said, because Harry and Meghan kept coming on every week, we're going to give them an honorary plank
we used to give
of the millennium.
In the old system, we used to have a carry-over, so we used to just carry them over.
Yeah.
Because it now works out that 5 times 2 is 10.
Yeah,
that's how we get the planks, I'm afraid. There is no carry-over. Anyway, it's time for your second one. I keep forgetting to tell people you're a comedian. I tell them this because they might not know it. They might not know it from watching you.
No,
that you actually do it for a living.
That's
right.
Yeah.
Can you try and say something funny?
Never. That will go against my brand.
Well, who's your next nomination?
You'll be done for false advertising. My next, my next plank of the week is Wilton Sampio, and I've never felt like more of a blooming lad. He was the referee at the England match on Sunday.
Now, there he is.
If I can. I know nothing about football, right? But
why are you nominating him then?
Because even I watched that and was like, something's up.
He gave 2 penalties to England.
Yeah, it should have
One
been
of them
like
reluctantly.
4.
One
Yeah.
of them reluctantly.
Yeah, it
Well,
was.
one of them was reluctantly not taken as well.
Well, that's very. That ball's still in orbit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I honestly think that, like, if I can watch a match and say this doesn't seem fair, then there's a problem.
Okay, so you're one of those England fans that occasionally pops up every 4 years and goes, "It's not fair.
Yeah.
It's not fair."
I don't like football, but I love a bandwagon, and
you?
I will jump on that bad boy like nobody's
And
business.
like all lefties, you've jumped on the wrong bandwagon because you should have been on the French bandwagon because they're now in the final against Argentina.
Yeah, but I think it's easier to complain than it is to do something. You know what I mean?
Well, of
And
course.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why we're here.
And that's like all of his politics are similar to that. Georgie, you've got a football-related one.
Oh, I was gonna say,
Oh, well,
I'm
you can
going to be
have some.
controversial and say I actually enjoy a bad referee.
Yeah.
I miss it. I think VAR's just, you
But
know,
VAR has screwed everything up, hasn't it?
the great thing about sport is, you know, it's down to that 90 minutes, the players on the pitch, and you can mess up and you can make mistakes, or you can have a blinder, or you can shoot the ball into orbit, right? Why shouldn't the referee be allowed that?
And there's
You know,
an
I
element
miss
of
those
chance.
days.
The referee didn't see it because you were clever enough to conceal it, therefore you win.
Well, exactly.
Right?
However, saying that, I'm a Derby
So I've
County
always
season
lived
ticket
my
holder,
life.
and I have to say the level of refereeing in League One is you know, is awful. But you know,
well, let's
little
get
bit
on with
of
the
bad
real
refereeing.
villain of the World Cup, shall we?
Apologies. Yes.
Yes.
So my plank nomination is another sort of perennial plank that we could have any week.
Yes.
But
Perennial
Most
plank.
weeks.
this week I had to pick it. It's Gary Lineker.
Of course.
And it's almost like...
Well done, Gazza.
Dig. And I like Gary. I have to say, you know, I think he's turned into a very, very competent broadcaster, natural sports broadcaster.
Very competent.
Very competent, yeah.
In fairness, I would take that.
Favourite phrase, that.
A very good... Well, you know, at the start.
Yeah.
But it's like he plays this game of spin the woke lefty wheel of misfortune.
Yes.
Where's it going to land this week?
Yeah.
Black Lives Matter, refugees, sewage, coal. This week it was Americans being extremely racist. And it's just... Really? Do you have to have...
why is
You
he
don't have
doing
to have an
that?
opinion about
Why-
everything. But there's two issues I have... Well, the few issues I have with this is... I didn't realise he was an expert on geopolitics and energy security,
He
but
is.
that's OK. Is two things. One is I feel it's so unfair as BBC employees can't say what they feel, yet he can. And they use this argument, oh, he's in sport.
Yeah.
No, he's not. And whether you like it or not, when he holds that BBC mic to his face, he represents the BBC, which is impartial or supposedly impartial, and it does globally represent Britain. So when you're calling America extremely racist, look, I did race relations in the US as my first degree. It is a very delicate subject to talk about. I couldn't begin to even unpick that situation. But the second one is also this idea of clicktivism. He can send out a tweet and there you go, I've saved the world. I've sorted everything. No, you haven't. If you want to talk about human rights issues in Qatar, do not get paid big bucks by the BBC and sit there and then commentate for the rest of the tournament on it.
Even worse.
Make a stand and leave.
Even worse, don't take 1.6 million from the Qatari broadcasting organisation called Al Jazeera, which he also did 6 years before the World Cup. But after the World Cup had been granted to Qatar, so he's even taken the money from the Qataris and then gone back and told them they're horrible people.
Be that as it may.
Look at he's shocked by that.
You
shocked
can make,
and
he
appalled.
can make a difference. This is just, if you really, really want to make a stand, he has an influence. Become a politician, you know, or an aid worker.
stand for election.
Or do a
Stand for election. Ben did that
talk
and got elected.
TV presenter and play the Wheel of Misfortune.
Yeah.
I
That
think
could
that
work,
sounds like a great
right?
game, though.
Yeah.
I think we should do the
You
Wokey
can-
Wheel
you
of
can-
Misfortune.
Yeah,
It's-
that's
you
another,
that,
that's
you can
entirely
have that.
another show.
It's quite a
That's another
tongue
show.
twister, that
Yeah.
one.
I think that would be great
Lefty
fun.
woke Wheel of Misfortune.
Yeah.
We could really...
Think of the
where's
graphics
it
that
gonna
we're going to go
land this week?
because
would
we're up
love
against
that.
it. But there's still more football to come because I'm going to nominate somebody who was also involved in that game. You might not be surprised to know. We'll be back with more plankery after this. Absolutely right. Welcome back to Plank of the Week. We're in the final furlong. Already, I don't know where the show time has gone. And obviously, because the World Cup is still upon us, the World Cup, despite England going out, is still very much in everybody's thoughts. We've had quite a bit of a talk about football already. You wanted to say, Laura, something else about Gary Lineker before we move on to the very quick last nomination of mine.
Well, I
Did you want to put your
can
two
barely
halfpennies
remember
worth
during
in?
the break. There's always so much to say about Gary Lineker, but I will say it's the idea that BBC Sport is impartial is a joke. I
Yeah.
mean, they didn't play the Qatar opening ceremony
yeah.
and instead proselytise about. Well, he's just a woke weather vane.
Yeah.
They just
Well, I
want to
call
talk
it, you know,
about
I
issues,
call it
and
now
that's
the-
not what sport should be about.
I'd say now I'm looking forward to the second match of the day, Human Rights Special, when they go to the United States of America. I'm imagining Gary Lineker live from the death chamber at Alabama Federal State Penitentiary, to see where he's going to go with that. Or,
Again, I'd watch
Alan
that.
Shearer on Roe versus Wade, it could all be tremendous stuff. But anyway, my final plank is also football related. You might not like it since you nominated the referee. I'm going to nominate Gareth Southgate, because he's a man who can best be described as a one-eyed man in the land of the blind. Like a lot of footballers, he has a bit of a brain in his head, but not much. He encouraged the team to be nice, and this is his biggest mistake. The team is all about wearing armbands, which, of course, they didn't do in the end anyway, because they got threatened with a yellow card, and they thought, oh, no, we better not stand up for LGBT rights now, because we might lose the game. So that shows you what strength of character they've all got. And he's just made them all nice. The French bullied them, they pushed them off the ball, they tripped them up, and all they could do was wave at your referee and go, oh, we've been fouled. Instead of which, they should have been elbowing people back. They should have been...
You want battle royale, don't you? That's what you want.
I want sportsmen and women to be single-minded, like Nick Faldo was, like, I don't know, who can you say? John McEnroe, like Novak Djokovic, like Roy Keane. People
Gazza?
Gazza, no, he was too nice.
He was a crybaby.
He was too nice.
I don't know, he's the only person I know.
Single-minded. Lewis Hamilton, he's not a very nice bloke. He wins things. You can't win things by just being nice.
Is your argument that Gareth is too nice?
Yeah, he's turned the team into a too
soft.
nice team. They can't win anything.
Only Mike. Only Mike,
Yeah.
that you want more... Basically, you want gladiatorial combat.
Yeah.
You want Jack Grealish to come on with, 2 guns and start, kneecapping people and stuff like that.
That's what
That would be a red card. But what I wouldn't want him to be is somebody who's pushed off the ball by a Frenchman and he just goes, Anyway, we have to choose the winner.
Half-time, though, have you seen how much injury time was added on to most of these games?
Yeah, but this is
a whole other game.
It's a
at the
macro
end.
problem, not a micro problem.
Well,
Gareth Southgate is useless. He needs to go. Get rid of him. And I think because of that, I am going to now have to make the decision. I've had some very, very good nominations. I've had Gary Lineker, who's been on it before. Sadiq Khan, yes, very good. The Highways Agency, also good. But I think this is the week that England went out of the World Cup yet again. So I think I'm going to have to say, guys, I'm going to have to nominate my own nomination as the winner.
Biased jury.
This is how it goes.
Fixed, yeah.
So it's Gareth
We need to
Southgate.
strike.
Gareth Southgate, plank of the week. Look, this is where the bad stuff happens. They're all going to invade the pitch and start fighting each other. This has been Plank of the Week. We'll see you next week.